You've seen them, right? Those really pricey supplements that basically claim to be a fountain of youth in a pill. Well, today, we're going to cut through all that marketing hype and look at what the science actually says. We're diving deep into NAD+, to figure out if these anti-aging supplements are worth your money.
Okay, but before we get into it, we have to do the quick but very important disclaimer. What we're talking about today is just for informational purposes. It is absolutely not medical advice. So please, for any health decisions, always talk to a qualified healthcare professional.
So that leads us right to the billion-dollar question that everyone's asking. Can you really just pop a pill and reverse the aging process? I mean, that's the promise, isn't it? Let's see what the evidence has to say about that. Now, before we can even begin to talk about supplements, we first have to understand the star of the show here, a little molecule called NAD+. And to do that, we need to go right inside your cells. Okay, its full name is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide. It's a mouthful, I know. But don't worry, you don't need to remember that. What you do need to know is that this thing is a critical coenzyme and it's found in literally every single cell in your body. This is probably the best way to think about its main job. Just picture NAD+ as the charger for your cell's battery. You eat food, and NAD+ is what lets your cells take the nutrients from that food and turn them into energy. Simple as that. Without it, the whole system just grinds to a halt. So really, it has two huge jobs. First, like we just said, it's absolutely essential for producing energy. But second, it's also a key player in DNA repair. You know, our DNA gets damaged all day long just from, well, living. NAD+ helps switch on the proteins that go in and fix that damage, which keeps our cells running smoothly. Okay, so if NAD+ is so great, what's the problem? Well, this is where the whole anti-aging story really kicks off. Something happens to our NAD+ levels as we get older. And it's not a small problem. It's a pretty big one. Research suggests that by the time you hit middle age, your NAD+ levels could have dropped by as much as 50% compared to when you were in your 20s. Think about that. That's a huge loss of your cellular battery charge. So why does this happen? Well, it's kind of like a double whammy. On one side, the little engines in our body that produce NAD+ just get slower and less efficient with age. And at the same time, our older cells have more DNA damage that needs fixing, so they start using up more NAD+ for all those repairs. It's like having a phone that charges slower but drains its battery faster. Yeah, not a great combination. And this, of course, is where the supplement industry saw a massive opportunity. The logic seems simple, right? If your NAD+ levels are going down as you age, why not just take more of it in a pill? Well, as it turns out, it's not nearly that straightforward. Right, so here's the first major hurdle. You can't just swallow an NAD+ pill and expect it to work. The molecule itself is actually really big, and when it hits your digestive system, it gets broken down before it ever has a chance to get into your cells in one piece. I love this analogy because it just perfectly explains the problem. Taking NAD+ directly is like trying to mail a fully built bicycle. To get it through the door, your body has to tear it apart into a bunch of pieces, and there's absolutely no guarantee it's going to get put back together correctly on the other side. So, to get around this, the supplement industry got clever. They used something called precursors. You've probably seen the names NR and NMN. These are basically the smaller building block molecules. The whole idea is that your body can absorb these little pieces much more easily and then use them to build its own NAD+. But, and this is a really big but, there's a catch. Just because your body can absorb these precursors, that doesn't mean it automatically turns them all into useful NAD+ right where you need it. Our bodies have their own incredibly complex systems for regulating these things. All right, and this brings us to the most important part of this whole conversation. Let's put the marketing hype on one side and the actual evidence from human studies on the other and see how they stack up. So this table really tells the whole story. You see these claims about dramatic anti-aging effects? Well, if you look closer, they're almost always coming from studies on mice or on cells in a petri dish. And look, that research is cool, it's exciting, but mice are not tiny people. What works for them just doesn't always translate to us. When we look at the actual human studies, the results are, well, much more modest. We're talking about small trials over short periods of time, showing maybe some subtle effects. There's just no solid proof right now that any single pill can truly turn back the clock in a human being. So if a miracle pill isn't the answer, then what is? Let's talk about what a smarter, more evidence-based approach to healthy aging actually looks like. Okay, before you even think about spending your money, here's a quick checklist. First,
The cost is no joke. It can easily be over $100 a month. Second, just remember that the actual human evidence for those big, dramatic claims is pretty thin. Third, you've got to manage your expectations. If there are any benefits, they're likely to be subtle, not life-changing. And finally, remember, the supplement industry isn't very tightly regulated, so the quality of what you're buying can be all over the place. And here we have the powerful alternative. I know, it's the stuff we've heard before, but that's because it's backed by mountains of real science. Regular exercise, eating a balanced diet, getting good sleep, and managing stress, these are all proven to support healthy aging and boost your body's own natural energy systems. And guess what? They don't cost a fortune.
So what's the bottom line here? It's this. The science behind NAD+ and its role in our bodies is totally legitimate. It's a fascinating and incredibly important molecule. But the giant leap from that scientific fact to the marketing claim that a supplement will make you young again, well, that leap just isn't supported by the human evidence we have today. Which really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. When you weigh your health and your wallet, you have to ask yourself, is the potential for a very subtle benefit really worth the very high price of the hype? That's the question you've got to answer before you buy.